Hello everybody, you know what time it is, an hour earlier than normal, but welcome back to the EA Sports Creator Series, and we are here this afternoon for the penultimate round of the season, kicking things off, of course, as we always do, with Formula 2. We're at the business end of this season, and today could be the day that Mr. Dale's return to F1 is confirmed. Let's get excited about that. He holds a 33-point lead currently over his Campos team at F1 Alex as they prepare to do battle around the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. The battle for the playoffs very much is still on as well after some major swings last week in Singapore, which was a bit of a crazy race, I must say. There is now just 16 points separating 5th down to 10th. Everything very much still to play for. In the virtual commentary box for this afternoon's action, it is myself, Tom, and alongside me it is Jamie. Now, Jamie, we haven't seen you for the last couple of weeks. What do you make of the state of play currently in the championship?
Realistically, between P1 and P2, it's not close. Only 33.2. It isn't exactly far either, but at least Mr. Dale has had the opportunity to try and spread out that gap a little bit, try and get some type of advantage over the rest of the field, which he has been able to do successfully. F1 Alex and P2, there has been some decent races from him throughout the season. Obviously, me doing Brazil, having a look at Suzuka, and obviously other races that have taken place so far as well. I mean, overall, currently, the top 10 have been looking quite competitive with one another. Adam Sanderson as well, sneaking in a few good finishes in terms of points as well. So it overall has been quite an exciting season overall so far.
Yeah, and of course last week in the sprint we saw Dale for the first time fail to pick up points, or the first time since Japan, in that sprint race where he also had a bit of a stinker. F1 Alex capitalising, picking up the victory in that, and also picking up a second place in the feature race with Dale following him home. We saw a brilliant performance from Dragonflies though, picking up a win, and that puts that driver into a really good position in the championship. If we have a quick run through the standings, we've got the two Campos drivers out in front, then we've got Sproe on 71, F1's got 67, GWAT's with 60, and then Dragonflies climbing the table up into 6th on 57. Damien's in there, Dark Viper, Duncan, B-Roy, Punju a little bit further back, as is his Trident teammate Adam Sanson. So we've got a big group of drivers that are very much still in the running for these playoffs.
Absolutely, it's definitely not exactly far-fetched off each and every driver, and it's still in close contention, so I think it's still anyone's game realistically, and I think it's still well and truly up for grabs.
And what do you make of this circuit? Miami's been somewhat of a controversial addition to the calendar in real life. We've seen the qualifying, or the sprint shootout yesterday, which was very exciting, I have to say. What do you make of the circuit? What kind of racing do you think we'll be seeing?
You know what? Here's my overall opinion of Miami, and I think a lot of people may agree or they may disagree. I think in terms of diversity, in terms of technicality, in terms of straight lines, but then also having that opportunity to really use the downforce from the cars and getting the maximum rotation possible, it offers that. There's only one part of the circuit they messed up. Everything else is fantastic. Even the back straight, it's that chicane, the one part that just ruins it. But everything else about Miami is actually a really nice circuit to drive on.
Yeah, the first sector's really nice and flowing. Then you get into that middle sector. Oh boy, I think we could be seeing some struggles through that horrible sequence of corners. Like you said, it's the major flaw, and we saw Charles Leclerc yesterday get stuck having a little whoopsie coming out of that corner, which was very interesting to watch. Then you got that long back straight. The final hairpin at 17, just a couple of corners before the end of that, is actually very tricky. There's so little grip on the exit, and it's a very weird angled corner, isn't it? So we could be seeing some overtakes there, but equally we could be seeing some major mistakes in that corner as well.
I think it's not just grip as well. I think the curbs themselves, the elevation on each of the sausage curbs makes it really hard to try and pick where you need to be. You go too far on one, you can see you bottoming out on the curb itself, and next thing you know, you go around. So I think trying to place your car is one thing, trying to get the traction is another. Overall, it's quite a tricky part of the circuit.
Absolutely, and this of course is one of the lowest grip tracks anyway. We could be seeing that come to fruition because these F2 cars are a little bit loose at the rear, let's say. Championship wise though, we've got to talk about Dale. Last week was, I say, a bump back down to earth. He picked up a podium of course, but he could become champion today depending on what his teammate F1 Alex does. Those two Campos drivers are going to be at it hammer and tongs. The gloves are well and truly off. We saw that a little bit last week as well. Do you think he's going to get it done?
Oh, you've put me on the spot here. I don't know. I think in a lot of cases it's very possible. First thing you have to think about is obviously, the sprint race, because considering how many points he needs to pick up in here, I mean, he needs to make his way through the field. If, the drivers decide to really defend against him, that's going to make it a much harder challenge for him to try and get the points maybe necessary. And then also considering the feature race, I mean, obviously at that point you're using the one-shot qualifying to set down your position. So obviously now you have the opportunity to try and get into a position that may be granting you more points on the board. But a single mistake, a single spin, a single loss of traction, let's say on the chicane, for example, and it all goes wrong in a moment's notice. So to be honest, we could say it could be done today. We could say it doesn't. I'm going to take the prediction and say it won't be.
Oh, I like that. Bit of a different view. I know a lot of people are going to be a big fan of seeing Dale potentially win that championship. If we turn our attention to the formation lap, we've currently got a couple of new faces at the bottom. Alex Budd returning after a hiatus for a few weeks. We've also got Lolinova for the first time down in 18th on the grid. Only one driver selecting the soft compound tyres, interestingly enough. Unfortunately for Patterson, they've been disqualified, and it happened pretty much instantly with Zach RC, so not a very good start for those guys at all. Tyre strategy wise, I feel like the soft tyres, we've seen them have a big advantage in recent races. They could really burn up though around this track because the surface temperature is very high, the load you put through that first sector in particular. Do you think that'll be a bit of a blunder maybe?
Potentially. I definitely believe it's pretty possible for that to potentially become a circumstance at a place like Miami, especially with the temps that we're clearly seeing up in the sky. It's definitely not a cold day out. It's definitely looking like if you get your temps, your tire temps up to temperature, and including the track temp, including the air temp, and including any part of the track where maybe you're leaning on the suspension a little bit more and you're putting, like you mentioned, more friction into the rubber of the tires themselves, into the surface carcass, then we could well and truly see a lot more degradation come around to, later on when those tires are up to temperature.
Absolutely. Dark Viper returning as well, starting 10th on the grid. Brilliant couple of races in Silverstone and Chine, but missed last week. Dirk Chocolate as well. The two Rodin Carlin drivers returning. Dirk starting from 4th. Had a very good sprint race in Japan, I think it was, earlier on in the season. Can he replicate something similar today? We'll have to wait and see. But Jamie, as the cars line up on the grid, hopefully they're all able to park correctly. Would you like to take us through the starting sequence to kick off the penultimate round of the season?
I would love to. Penultimate round of the season, but it only gets more exciting as time goes on, ladies and gentlemen. Only 2 rounds to get it right. How will this end here in Creator Series? Right now we can see Alex Budd just lining up on the final row of the grid. And we wait patiently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. The lights go out in pedal to metal here for F2. Penultimate round at Miami. Sprint race is underway. Luke Howick stays in P1. Patterson already up to P2 on the outside line. Zach RC trying to defend on the inside. It's 3 wide already going through into the first corner. It's 4 wide near the end of the field though. You can see Duncan trying to fight through it, going further up into the top 10, but backs down to P11. Looks like G-Watts as well. P10 at the current time, tries to defend behind, has a good position both in front and behind to stay where he is, but it looks like it's all evened out, at least for the time being. Looks like in Rodin Carlin, it's Dark Viper GT and Dirk Chocolate right beside one another. Looks for the inside line teammate. Dark Viper GT can't get it done. P5 stays where he is. As we go a little further down, looks like will to action between Hoodie P in P8 or P9, sorry, and P8 of Dragon Files, but able to defend perfectly at the moment. F1 Alex already up to P16 and Dale already up to P14, making quick and current progress at the moment. Luke Howick now down to P2 with Patterson up to P1. Fantastic move down the inside. Can the VAR potentially make a move back on him? Any type of switchback, but no. Down the inside goes Adam Sanderson in the Trident. Goes on the outside line. Needs to be careful though. Switches over to the inside to make sure to use as much of that momentum from the chicane as possible. Right near the rear diffuser of the Prema car. Right now needs to use the slipstream and toe, potentially make it possible. Can't seem to look on the inside or outside line. Stays where he is, but now switches to the inside line. Has the slipstream and toe. Trident's gonna go for it on the back straight. Gives it everything he's got. Late on the brakes. Downshift to third gear. Rolls the car around. Make sure to lean on the suspension. Patterson down to P2. And by the end of lap 1, Adam Sanderson leads the Miami sprint race.
Using the soft tyres, Patterson, but doesn't hold on to the lead. The two drivers that started on the front row, Zach RC and Luke Howick, now find themselves down in 6th and 7th place and potentially losing more spots in there as well. The other Van Amersfoort car of Duncan had a terrible start, got clattered into the barrier on the run-up into turn 1, picked up some front wing damage and fell down into 14th, squabbling further back. Hoodie Pete and Dale trying to fight over P12, and I think it's the Campos, the championship leader, who's trying to come through from 16th on the grid up into 12th place. F1 Alex getting stuck a little bit in the midfield, down in 15th, just behind the slightly hampered Duncan in the Van Amersfoort car. Dragonflies trying to move forward as well. Zach RC continues to struggle, fell off the road. Brilliant start from Adam Sanson, brilliant start for B-Roy, and Dark Viper moving forward as well. Was that Dragonflies in the wall there?
It was slight contact to the wall. Looks like it's going to be his right hand side front wing end plate that does fall off. Now the F2 car just going to have a little less downforce, and every single little bit of downforce you can produce from any part of the car, if that's the front wing, rear wing, side pods, floor, looks like also down the inside for B-Roy against Luke Howick. Luke Howick, however, actually in P6, it's B-Roy potentially making a move against Dark Viper GT. Looks like it has been move successful for Dark Viper GT. B-Roy couldn't seem to get the move done going through into the almost curved point of the circuit at turn 12 and 13, but stays where he is for ART and just trying to make his way through the field once again, clawing, scratching through the tarmac, and looks like will-to-will action between Dirk, Chocolate and Patterson.
Yeah, I wonder if the soft tyre's already starting to burn up. Dirk with a tentative look up the inside of turn 17. Going to try and use the traction on the exit to get past this Prema driver and get up into second place from 4th on the grid. We've got a yellow flag. I think that's Dragonflies in trouble again. Yes, it is tumbling through the pack. We're going to stay on board with this, but I think there might be a bit of a car park at the turn 17 hairpin. Patterson's going to hold on to the lead. Coming into the pits, I believe that is F1 Alex, and Sproit into the box as well. What has gone on? No, it's F1 Alex still stuck here.
Yeah, so VSC's deployed. I believe it was a mixture of Alex Bud, F1 Alex, Lolim Noba, and Hoodie Pete all involved in that incident, making contact with one another. It was almost like a domino effect. One person spun, makes contact with another, blocks off more of the track, then another follows in pursuit of that, and then the fourth joins in on the carnage and has seen 4 drivers coming into the pit lane. And I believe Alex Budd also was a part of that, has, I believe, a bit of end plate damage on that front wing, so will be struggling for downforce, but at least has the VSC and slowing down with the Delta to try and help him out, catch back up through the field.
Yeah, very interesting little car park going on. I think it was instigated by Dragonflies. F1 Alex, as it goes from bad to worse. He gets the restart wrong. Dirk and Patterson are going to continue their duel down the hill. And it's the Roden Carlin car that comes out on top as the Prema loses another place down into third. And it's Dark Viper is tag team from the 2 Roden Carlin cars. Dark Viper's going to try and get up into third place. They've dropped B-Roy a little bit. Then it's Luke Howick ahead of Zach RC. F1 Scott done brilliantly to get up into the top 8. Dale's made up 8 places ahead of Damien, rounding out our top 10. I don't think this is done though. Look at Dirk Chocolate. Got that Prema still all over the back of him, with Dark Viper trying to nip in there as well. Can they use the slipstream to good effect? It's not overly powerful in the F2 cars. Going to try and use the DRS as much as possible. Dirk, will he be a sitting duck and potentially lose 2 places on this long run down into turn number 17? Will the Prema send it up the inside? No, Patterson decides to sit behind for now. Means that Dark Viper can't quite get alongside, but now uses the switch back on the exit as the 2 Roden Carlin cars still trying to work together. Patterson's being tag team, little bit of banging of wheels as they go through the final corner and start lap number 4. Who's going to come out on top? This is going to continue on the run down into turn number 1. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? Bit of a rear lock-up for Dark Viper, and that will concede third place for the time being.
And conceding at least, as you mentioned, for the time being, but it's definitely not game over.
Oh,
and
dear.
as I say, that commentary curse, Patterson into the barrier, does just get a bit too overzealous on the throttle there. Unfortunately, now does see himself down in P5, and Luke Howick potentially hunting down, seething at the teeth, potentially make a move around at what looks to be turn number 6 and 7. However, I highly doubt making it. Soft compound tyres clearly not doing well for the Prema driver. F1 Alex with now a 5-second time penalty against his name, and he's actually retired from the session. That is in the pit lane, however, won't concern of us of any safety car. Looks like Dragonfile's following in close pursuit to Punju, and DRS active for Dale to try and potentially make a move on the outside line going into turn number 11. Oh,
yeah, we've got a 3-way scrap. Luke Howick has just got past the ailing Prema of Patterson, and then Scott's just given it a love tap for good measure as well, going straight into the back of him, down into turn number 11. as Scott's just going to sit behind for now. They've got Zach RC trying to make up for what was an awful start, started from second, now down in 8th. Damien, like you said, getting ahead of Dale, interestingly enough, needs to try and capitalise on his teammates' struggles, but still sat outside the top 8 for the time being. And who's going to win out this battle? Patterson, been losing places hand over fist with that mistake on the first sector of this lap. Can't get my words out as the two Road and Carlin cars squabbling over second and third as this Dark Viper trying to get past his teammate. Gets a little bit of a shove out towards the barrier. Dirk Chocolate firmly closing that door as they're going to start lap number 5. But I think this is going to continue on the run down into turn number 1. DRS flat well and truly open. Will Dark Viper switch it to the inside? Does switch it to the inside as Patterson dives into the pits. Dirk going to hang it around the outside though. Should hold on, but no, gets a little bit wobbly on the exit. They're still side by side through this beautiful first sector sequence of corners, but Dirk eventually has to give up on that one. Dark Viper showing that pace we saw a few races ago and gets up into second and can now chase after the trident of Adam Sanson. B-Roy next on the list to have a little go at Dirk.
Dark Viper has a little bit of clean air ahead of him, but we wouldn't be too sure about Dirk Chocolate backing out of it. Running wide is Dark Viper GT, getting onto the dirty side of the track on the runoff. Also be careful of B-Roy behind in P4. He's starting to catch up towards P3 at the moment. 142.944, fastest lap for Foxborough at this very time. Looking a little further down, gaps are starting to extend throughout the field at the moment. Closest actually at the moment is this top 4 battle. Right now B-Roy continuing to look towards that inside but doesn't decide to make any type of move. The two Red Bull livery Road and Carlin cars sticking with each other like magnets at the moment, but B-Roy trying to exploit any type of mistake that that Dirk Chocolate decides to make, looking towards into turn number 16, entering into the long back straight where DRS would activate for these Formula 2 cars. Doesn't look like any opportunity at this very time, but we'll have a quick look at B-Roy and Dirk Chocolate. Dirk does have DRS though. This is going to pretty much cancel out much of a aerodynamic gain. It is still going to gain him time, but significantly less. It still looks like he is going to send it down the inside, does send it, late on the brake, gets the rotation in time, sticks on the apex of the corner, makes sure to use those rear wheels to try and get traction onto the tarmac, and before you know it, he's covering off the inside line. Now to the outside. Dirk Chocolate's not done though. DRS is active. Late on the brakes. Downshift to fourth gear now. Third and second. Late though. It squeezes out the Alpine livery car. ART has to back out of it. Down to P4 and Dirk Chocolate needing to try and defend and attack as well as he possibly can. More contact made between the two. Going into the next couple of corners. Almost a swivel of corners. Not really a chicane, continuing through the curve, running wide is Dirk Chocolate. Now getting the switch back, going on the outside, switching to the inside is B-Roy at ART, making sure to try and get the rotation necessary. Dirk Chocolate now has to back out of it, and B-Roy up into the podium positions.
Not over yet, though. Certainly not over yet. The Road and Carlin picking up some DRS for his troubles going down this very kinked straight. Lot of little twists in it, and I think this is going to be an opportunity to get that third place back. B-Roy probably choosing the wrong part of the circuit to make that move. Going to try and swing it around the outside. Contact again, and this time Dirk just manages to hold on to it, nearly spinning into the Armco on the left-hand side, and that does eventually relegate him confirmed down into 4th place. While that was going on, hell of a battle going on behind. Scott, Dale, and Damien all getting past Luke Howick, who's struggling to hold on to positions in that Van Amersfoort car. This is good for F1 Scott as he tries to consolidate that position in the playoffs, and also Dale as well, trying to win the championship this week and is doing a very good job up in 6th place with his teammate out of the running. Further down, there are still some squabbles going on for the final points paying positions. The two Invicta cars sat just behind Luke Howick. Adam Sanson, though, under huge pressure from that Road and Carlin of Dark Viper, who is absolutely flying.
Absolutely. Right now, we can see from Duncan onwards, it's starting to look a bit competitive, especially if we look at P6. Mr. Dale, already as I mentioned, P6, he's made plenty of positions from where he started to be exactly on that point. It's actually 11 positions gained. He started P17, he's already P6, obviously making his way through the field. P1 in the championship, it was almost also P2 in the championship. Oh, wait, no, sorry. P1 in the championship. I'm getting names mixed up here. Apologies. But no, right now, Campos has made significant progress, continuing to do so, cutting down gap lap after lap, corner after corner. This battle between F1 Scott and Dirk Chocolate's not going to make it any easier for these two, because now Dale's right up the rear end, near the rear diffusers and rear wings of these certain cars, and if he can potentially have the momentum, which looks to be on his side either way, now with DRS as well. So with these two cars, they both have DRS. And as we say that, in the background, Adam Sanderson now falls down to P2, back to P1 on the outside line, squabbling between the two cars of Roden, Carlin, and Trident. Trident defending the inside line, going into the chicane. Perfect defending. Absolutely precise from Adam Sanderson at the moment. But now, what can Dark Viper GT do? Well, he can use the DRS down the back straight. As we go back to the battle before, Dale's up to P6. But contact made to the rear tyres of Dirk Chocolate. Mr. Dale, JE's up to P5. But what did it potentially cost in terms of position if a penalty could potentially come on his name later down the line? Adam Sanderson now does fall down to P2. Contact made to the rear of Dark Viper GT, however. Rear diffuser does go spinning, and Adam Sanderson
Dale's
now
off.
Potentially has a bit of a battle.
Oh, everybody's off. Everybody's off for the final couple of corners. It's a car park. We've got Zach RC down there. G-Watts was off the circuit. We saw Dale go way too deep in there as well. I really don't know what went on there. We've got another virtual safety car. That was very, very strange. We saw Dale just go straight on. Dirk Chocolate was trying to hold on to as many positions as possible. And I just saw G-Watts, I think it was, going there, sliding off the circuit, skating into that runoff area that we predicted we'd see a few cars in there at some point during this race. Zach RC getting involved as well. Very, very strange. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capture all of it because we were hampered by the camera angle just looking at the apex of turn 17. But that has shaken things up massively. Out in front, we were also trying to keep an eye on that. It is Dark Viper into the lead ahead of Adam Sanderson. That's swapping places. B-Roy, we had a terrible week last time. Currently holding down third place ahead of F1 Scott, Damien, Dirk, who's losing places hand over fist at the moment. Luke Hayek, and now it's G-Watts into the top 8. Dale dropping down a couple of places into 10th place. I think he may have been the instigator, just catching everybody out. If we talk about that incident between Dale and Dirk Chocolate that started it all off, it looked like the Campos was just desperate not to give it up while they were side by side through that horrible middle sector, and then just coming together through turn 16 where we saw Charles Leclerc go off yesterday. Disappointment, but has still got a couple of laps to get up into the top 10. The good news for Dale, as we've said previously, because his teammate's out of the session, he's not really losing anything here.
No, not really. Realistically.
Oh, B-Roy!
It was a bit of a... Oh, no. I've just realised that as well. P3 B-Roy in ART has now picked up a 3-second time penalty. Unfortunate for him, unfortunately, does just speed past the VSC coming to an end. Looks like DRS now active for Trident of Adam Sanderson. He is going to send it down the inside. That's a late move. Oh, he does think about it. Does get late on the brakes, but also late for Dark Viper GT on the outside. Actually, a little fact for you racing fans, if you're new to racing lines, you can go later on the brakes on the outside than what you can do on the inside. For a lot of people who may think going down the inside can see you braking later than outside, no, you can't. Anyway, B-Roy coming into the pit lane, and sorry if I got that 3-second messed up with a drive-through. Either way, B-Roy coming in.
Way, 3 wide, sorry to cut in there between G-Watts and the two Van Amersfoort cars, battling in front of them as Damien and Dirk squabble. It's a bit of a slide for Luke Howick into turn 1. That's going to leave him at the mercy of his teammate potentially as they squabble over what is now 6th, 7th and 8th. The Invicta car of G-Watts very much in a VAR sandwich. Further forward though, Dirk Chocolate and Damien still going to scrap down into the sweeps of the first sector. Dirk going a little bit wide, could hamper him. More contact made between drivers, and it's Dirk that is not going to come off worse. I thought he was, managed to catch the slide. It's actually the Alfa Romeo liveried ART of Damien that falls back behind the Ronin Carlin. And look at the group of cars behind that have just closed up. It's who we were talking about earlier. G-Watts ahead of the two Van Amersfoort cars. Dale's in there. Punju, Dragonfly's trying to recover from the early mistake as well. This is going to continue down into the hairpin of turn number 11. And I think Dirk Chocolate is finally going to have to relinquish this place. Damien not going to give it up. G-Watts is going to make it 3 wide again, almost giving a shove into the barrier on the left-hand side. The Invicta car very aggressive, sweeping around the outside as F1 Damien as Dirk Chocolate clatters over the curbs. Dale, trying to get involved with the two Van Amersfoort cars, maybe trying to tag team there as he squabbles with Duncan over that final points paying position. You can see Punju, Dragonfly's in the background. Somehow we're still in the same order. G-Watts mounts the curb, trying to get as close as possible to Dirk Chocolate, who I think is going to be vulnerable going down this straight once again. Dale has got ahead of Duncan, but he does have front wing damage back there as well.
More contact being made between P10 to P8 as well. Dale trying to make his way through the field all over again, making contact to Van Amersfoort and Trident of Punju and Duncan. As we continue back up, you can see DRS throughout the field. As we go a little further back, it's really starting to squabble through their outside line for Duncan. He is going to go for it, and he's really trying to get that throttle down. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the room to pretty much get the maximum momentum from it. Has DRS again. Let's move a little further up. Still seems to be too separated for any further move to be made throughout the field. Still close margins near the back of this little fight at the moment at P11, but no one making moves going into turn 1 at the moment. Turn 2 and 3, still close margins between these drivers, and Luke Howick nearly losing the rear end of that car, getting a little slippy. Unfortunately, just deciding to try and stay flat to the floor. You do need to have a little bit of a lift as you come through turn 3. Didn't decide to do that, and in the case of, what was it, Patterson and Prema, who actually now comes into the pit lane, did make a mistake. Slight contact to the rear diffuser for Mr. Dale against Luke Howick, but Dale once again just showing that aggressive side, trying to make the maximum of it so far, and as he's now going to get DRS compared to a very wounded Van Amersfoort, it's a perfect opportunity on the outside line. He's going to use the slipstream and toe and use all the momentum out of the exit of the corner to potentially get it done. Stuck in stone, nip and tuck through the outside line. Is he going to potentially make it too? No, that's a bit far too fetched. And right now, as he continues onwards, it's now P7 for Mr. Dale JE as we continue back up through the field. The top 3, more specifically the top 2, has pulled away. 7.5 tenths separating Dark Viper GT to Adam Sanderson in P2, and then it's nearly 3.7, now is 3.7 seconds separating P2 to P3. Gaps are starting to extend. The fighting still continues through this midfield pack at the moment. You can see Duncan once again lining up a potential move on the outside line against Punju. Looks and almost seethes at trying to look and target that move. Can't seem to get it done. Goes very wide there. He's going to potentially lose out to now Dragon Files. Nearly will to will with him. Dragon Files can't get it done, but Duncan stays P10. And now Punju with the better momentum, using the middle of the track, switching to the inside through out of the exit of turn 17. He was able to maximize every part of the circuit. And now inside line, more contact being made between Luke Howick and Punju. Duncan's not too far behind. This is absolute warfare out at the moment.
Civil war between the Van Amersfoort cars. They've both just been tumbling through the field as they battle too hard with each other, and the drives around them. Punju, the next one to get through to take that final spot in the points. Luke Howick and Duncan now going to deal with Dragonflies out in front. On the penultimate lap, Adam Sanson has managed to stay very close to the back of Dark Viper. We could have a duel on the final lap. This duel that is now down to 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, with Dale at the back of them after Punju dropped back trying to get past the 2 Van Amersfoort cars, is probably going to continue as well. Dirk got G-Watts very close behind him. Dale also very close to the back of the Invicta car. I think it's going to be G-Watts on the move. Is Dirk going to go defensive? We've seen him try and fight very hard. Yes, he does. Over to the outside goes G-Watts, who's going to be later on the brakes. Dale picks up a penalty. I'm not sure what that's for, because he was on a straight, but he's picked up a 3-second penalty for corner cutting. Very, very strange there.
It would have been the runoff. It would have been the runoff as he's rotating through the corner. It would have been at turn 11 as he's coming into the little, I guess, curve of a corner before approaching into the chicane. He would have run off the track on that white line. It would have been very precise, but has picked up a 3-second time penalty. Still close margins between these drivers at the moment. Is still not breaking away. What I'm more interested in at the moment is Adam Sanderson versus Dark Viper GT. Look how close they are now.
Yeah, Adam Sanderson had a little look up the inside into turn 17. Thought better of it. Is going to stay behind for the time being, returning to the scrap behind. Dirt Chocolate going very late on the brakes. Going to have to be careful of G-Watts, who's been very feisty in the last few laps as well. Dale has dropped back a little bit after that slightly harsh corner cutting penalty, if it is what we believe it is. Got a Prema stopped in the first sector. I think that might be Hoodie Pete, who's had a bit of a stinker. Both cars have, to be fair. Is it Patterson?
Yeah, it's actually Patterson who was slowing down. Hoodie Pete already too far behind to potentially make it back. More fighting between Van Amersfoort at the moment. Continuing to just not give any space to one another, not giving any patience to one another, and still continuing to fight away like the enemies. And right now, this rivalry between these two, even if it is non-existent, at least on the circuit, right now, this little battle between these two is not going to look great in the hands of the imaginary team principal that currently principals the Van Amersfoort team. Anyway, P10 to P9 continuing to be as close as possible to one another. Adam Sanderson has lost out a little bit of time towards Dark Viper GT, hasn't been able to keep it there. Dale makes a move up against G-Watts on the back straight. It looks like G-Watts has still got DRS, however. More move up the front, bit of contact to the rear diffuser against Dirk Chocolate to Damien. Damien still keeps P for an F1. Scott picks up a 3-second time penalty. That podium will still be secure in his favor, though.
Still fighting the two Van Alsfort cars. Dragonflies finally decides I've got to get involved in this if I'm going to get a point, with Dale getting kicked out with that 3-second penalty, but still behind the roadblock of the two orange cars as they squabble over 9th and 10th. It's not even for a points paying position. Further forward, Adam Sanson wasn't quite close enough to make a move into turn 17, which means that Dark Viper, who was brilliant in Silverstone, he was brilliant in Shanghai, gonna win here in the sprint in Miami. It's Dark Viper in the Road and Kind that crosses the line to win the sprint ahead of Adam Sanson. F1 Scott will complete the top three, and then it's this duel that's been going on for ages. Dirt Chocolate, he's stuck like glue to the back of Damien, but wasn't ever close enough to make the move to get back up into 4th. Dale will cross the line in 6th, but probably get bumped way down out of the points paying positions. Punju and G-Watts pushed up 3 wide over the line. We didn't quite catch it. Dale does just about hold on to 1 point in 8th. Luke Harrick, Duncan and Dragonflies drag racing up to the line, and it was Luke Harrick that finished ahead of Duncan. None of them getting points though, because they cost each other too much time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was, well, to say the very least, that was messy from their end, and it has cost them quite dearly. B-Roy as well had quite a good starting position. Unfortunately, won't end up in that P15. Zach RC P16 as well, and, well, Prema, well, 17 and 18 there. They're miles apart, unfortunately, and that would not be a great sprint race showing on their end, but hopefully they can showcase a little bit more in the one-shot quali and also in the feature race in a little bit. But something else I actually want to quickly talk about before we actually got into the sprint race. What is one thing I mentioned? If Dale just, I mean, it's still very likely he could still pick up the championship, but think about it. If he, I said to myself and said obviously to the stream, it's very possible he doesn't get the points necessary in the sprint race. If something like this happens again in the feature race, it could cost him dearly. Now, obviously, we do have a one-shot quali, which means if he really wanted to, he has the opportunity of pole position now. He could start P1, he could start P3, he could start in any position now. It's not like championship order. But what I mean is, with Dale, obviously, being in that position because of the championship, making his way through the field, and because he kept getting stuck in this fight with all these drivers, and then we saw him in P6, maybe there's a little bit of a chance that he's starting to make his way through the field, and all of a sudden we get a little bit of contact. Remember that big pile up going through into turn 17 at that runoff? All of a sudden we see him lose a significant amount of positions. 1 point to his name, no fastest lap. That's a single point towards potentially winning a championship. So just like that, just because of any type of circumstance, just because of any type of defense that another driver puts on, it just puts that championship lead into a bit more of a restriction.
Absolutely, and he could have scored a couple of more points, which would have made his case in the feature race a little bit easier. As it results, it's now 34 points the advantage. Basically, if he outscores F1 Alex in the feature race, he will probably take this championship, but we won't count on it. There is your podium. We will go through the finishing order because it was a very exciting sprint race, as they usually are. Dark Viper coming from 10th on the grid. Brilliant drive. Ahead of Adam Sanson, who should get his props as well. Podium for him. Excellent, excellent work. And F1 Scott returning to fine form with a 3rd place there as well. Everybody behind got stuck in quite nicely, didn't they? Damien, Dirk, G-Watts, Punju and Dale ahead of the two Van Alsfort drivers just outside the top 8. Dragonflies will be disappointed, had some really good pace but made a mistake early on. Alex Budd, a long way off the back of that train, nearly 20 seconds. Ahead of Sproe, these are all the guys that got caught up in that strange little incident we saw at turn 17. Lolinoba, debut finishing in 14th ahead of Zach RC. B-Roy, well, I think we should start with Zach RC. 2nd on the grid down to 15th. B-Roy 8th to 16th. Patterson 3rd to 17th, and Hoodie Pete 5th to 18th. Those guys having absolute stinkers. They'll be hoping to make up for it in the feature race, as will F1 Alex's championship hopes, looking to fall by the wayside a little bit. He's got to try and consolidate the playoff position after a disappointing start to the weekend. I have to say, that was extremely, extremely exciting. I really enjoyed that. Much better racing than I thought.
Very entertaining. No, it was very... This is what I'm saying. Miami has this weird diversity, and I think a lot of fans, when they think of, you know, especially some of the new American tracks like Vegas and Miami, you know, that use a lot more, they occupy a lot more of the roads of America, and that they just expect it to be pretty boring, or there's like this big spectacle of showing, and then the actual race itself is inadequate, right? But I've always thought Miami could deliver, and I think if anything, that's kind of proved it a little.
Well, maybe we found the formula for Miami. Formula 2. I remember Miami in Season 3 of the Creator Series was just a massive fuel save race. People having to save like a lap and a half of fuel from halfway through the race. I think we're still waiting for Miami to really, in real life, I mean, grab the bull by the horns, because there is potential there. I think it is just that horrible middle sector. The sequence from 11 up to 16, horrible to drive. They can replace that. I don't know what with, but you can have a really nice circuit. Because as we've seen, I know it's only the game, but we had some really good scraps, even in the twisty first sector where you probably wouldn't expect it.
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it could partially be because of Formula 2. I don't believe Formula 2 has ever driven at Miami in real life, so it could be partially because of that. But, obviously there is a spec series, right? They're all going to have very similar top speeds. You can't really do too much in terms of, your setup. You can't really change much of, the suspension or the main, structure of the car. Obviously, there's parts of the suspension you can change, but a lot of it's still limited. The engine stays how it is, right? There's no change to that. They're all the same manufacturer, same with the chassis themselves. So, in terms of it is a spec series, right? But with everything else still being considered, it still offered some great racing, even in, like you said, even in parts where we probably didn't expect it.
Absolutely. We're just watching the drivers. I mean, we can probably show you this. We've missed the main action, but on their faux start, let's call it, before we get into one-shot qualifying, they like to have a bit of a bumper car session. We've missed the best of that action there, but everybody getting disqualified, so a bit of fun off the start there. I mean, next week I'll try and show you the whole ordeal that goes on. It is fairly entertaining. One-shot quality up next, though.
It's yeah.
Yeah. What?
Oh no, sorry. I was going to comment on the Carnage, which
well, I mean,
is
you can. It's very entertaining.
It's carnage. Realistically, that's what it is. It's just a lot of drivers doing a bunch of jump starts, trying to take each other out. That's kind of what it is.
Your classic F1 open lobby from F1 2012 or whenever it was towards one-shot qualifying. We'll get back onto that. I think it's very difficult to read who had the best pace, because a lot of drivers had damage. A lot of drivers got stuck in traffic fighting very hard with each other. It was enjoyable from our perspective. Maybe not so much for them. Who are your favourites going into this? We've got to put the usual suspects towards the front. 2 Campos drivers. Yep. Dark Viper in really good form. Maybe Dragonflies as well, coming off that win in Singapore. The 2 Invicta cars as well have shown some really good pace. What are we thinking?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we'll do a random one. I think we're going to do a prediction here that potentially makes sense, potentially doesn't. It's up for a verdict if it is or not. Adam Sanderson on the podium.
Oh, okay. Well, he's already picked one up. I like that shout,
Yep.
I'm a big fan of that.
That's a prediction I'm going to go for. It's the unexpected one, you could say. It's the one you wouldn't normally see. You have your championship leader, or at least the top 3 that you expect to be near the front of the field. How about Adam Sanderson on the podium?
I mean, it's a big shout. No disrespect to Adam, but I thought when he lost the lead to Dark Viper there, I thought that Carlin was just going to pull off into the distance, leave him in the dust, but he managed to stick right onto the back of him. Could have potentially won that race if he was maybe a little bit later on the brakes into turn 17 or maybe into turn number 1. So there's definitely potential there. They were a long way clear of everybody else. F1 Scott didn't have the pace of them. It's unusual because Scott's usually one of the faster drivers in the series, and then the big group behind were way too busy fighting amongst themselves to make any real inroads. I think that's a good shout. Would you like to ride on board with him in qualifying?
We'll do exactly that. We'll have a little look at where he finishes. Let's hope firstly he doesn't invalidate on his lap time. Otherwise, that's not going to end very well for his favor. But if there's always a potential chance that he could be in a position where it could be a good shout. If he's in maybe P5, P6, it's unlikely. No offense, of course, but if he can do so, then I mean, it's very possible it could happen. But I don't know. You also have to consider the other suspects, of course. You've got Dale, you've got Alex, you've got Sproat as well. You've got F1 Scott, like you mentioned, has been competitive as of late throughout the entirety of this season since he's joined the Formula 2 grid. So realistically, it's a shot in the dark. That's kind of the whole point of the prediction. So does it happen? We don't know. If it happens, then at least that's a little added bonus on my side. But we never know.
I should say, to be fair, I know you've already called it, but typically what has happened so far this season is we've gone on board with a driver in one-shot quali. and it's not gone brilliantly. I think that's the best way to put it. They're usually, I don't know if it's just the pressure they feel, the weight of the world on their shoulders, even though they don't know that we're watching them. They seem to mess it up a little bit. Not terribly, no invalidated lap times or anything, no big crashes, but they're usually a little bit out of position they could be, so that could be interesting to see. And of course, remember back to Brazil, first race of the season, we only had 10 representative times, was it? Or it might have even only been 9 representative lap times in a one-shot quali section. So
you're right, because we had so many invalidations, and we had so many people who couldn't seem to set down a time and set down a time in time. Anyway. No, but getting into one-shot quali, though, it should be intriguing, that's for sure. Let's hope there isn't its own type of commentator's curse when we go on board with Adam Sanderson. Let's hope it all goes well for him. But like I said, we never know. That's the whole point of racing itself, right? Anything is very much possible.
Let's hope we see Adam Sanderson and not Devon Butler. I think that's the best way.
Yeah, no, true. Speaking of, let's actually talk about Dale for a second, because obviously he's trying. Dale, yes, he's trying to. I keep getting this wrong. Anyway, he keeps trying to attack, maybe a little too much. We saw that throughout the sprint race. He looked a bit too aggressive throughout that race. I don't know if he's able to just be a little bit more calm, not as complacent, not sending every move he can. I understand probably why he's doing it, because when you start P17, you need to make moves quickly, especially with the reduced amount of laps. But if he continues to do what he kind of did in the sprint race, he may not get the position what he needs to potentially win the championship. So on top of the fact that qualifying will obviously play a vital role, but let's say he's like P5, for example. He doesn't have the best lap of all time. He made a mistake. Maybe he lost the rear in a single corner or two. He got a bit overzealous on the throttle, and he's trying to make his way through the field. If he makes the same type of maneuvers that he made throughout the sprint race, then potentially it's going to be much harder, because there's going to be a lot better defending from the people ahead of him.
I don't think it's complacency. I think Dale he's a racer at heart, and I think he just loves to try and get involved as much as possible, and that's why we see him go for moves that maybe he shouldn't do at times. I think there he could have, like you said, been a lot more sensible, maybe tried to play the long game a bit more. But we are getting ready to go for one-shot qualifying. Do you want to take us through this lap with Adam Sanderson, if we can catch him, of course, because that is the weekly challenge that we have, trying to get on board with the driver at the start of the session, because it is a little bit challenging.
It's very difficult. Because everyone's moving positions in the beginning, and then you have to try and switch to them in time. But let's hope Adam Sanderson's near the front of the timing sheet so we can get there quickly. But yeah, no, I'd be pleasured to do so, and we can see what Miami kind of brings along at such a fantastic circuit. I genuinely do love this place. I think a lot of people do doubt it in a lot of ways. Obviously, the chicane's a little bit tricky. I need to try and catch him. Where is he? I see him. I'm going to get him. Okay. All right. This is not easy. I'm stuck in P12. I keep going to P12. Oh, no.
I mean, we're on board. Should I take us through the lap then to start with?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going well. It's been a pretty decent start, has to be said. So just behind his teammate Punju now up to third. They're trading places up towards this fast left kink of turn 4. This first sector in a Formula 1 car, beautiful to drive through. In a Formula 2 car, might be a little bit harder, very lazy. This corner is very, very difficult. We've got to try and be as late as possible to hit that apex, because you just get dragged over to that wall. That curve doesn't help as well. A little bit of a poor exit there, unfortunately, but he's still in 7th place as we come up to the first sector split. Yeah, continuing through now onto the, I wouldn't call it back straight, but onto the almost side straight of the circuit. There is a significant amount of top speed you'll pick up at the 3 straights that you see. You have the pit straight, this little side straight, and then the long back straight. Continuing through now into turn 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Pretty much a group of corners as he continues now up towards the uphill point of elevation. Make sure to avoid the sausage curb on the apex of turn 15. Then make sure to get down the throttle as quickly as possible, just so you can kick the rear out a little bit. It is quite a tight corner, and you need to get that rotation through. We've actually seen throughout the real life Miami so far, the tires keep hitting the barrier on the outside line, so you really do need to try and get the rotation as quickly as possible. Try not to leave your car too much on the outside. Approaching now into turn 17 at the final couple of corners. Then you have 18 and 19, a big few couple of S's that don't really affect the rotation of the car too badly. It's Dale
Dale, who does pick up pole position, a man who is trying to chase down his championship, and P10 for Adam Sanderson. If he wants a podium, 7 positions is not an easy job, but if a few crashes and a few mistakes happen throughout the field, still very well and truly possible. And now it's Dale's job, firstly, to try and get a good getaway, try not need to defend against anyone behind, and try and pull away as quickly as possible in terms of gap. But we'll have to wait and see. Dale will have it all up against him in pole position, especially seeing that I believe pole's on the outside line, so you're going to be well and truly not risk-free, whatever the opposite of risk-free would be, with drivers going down the inside.
2 drivers failing to get a time in, Luke Howick and Hoodie Pete down in 18th and 19th. Usual suspects towards the front, though. It is the 2 Campos drivers first and third, with F1 Scott in the middle. Lolin Ober, though, brilliant performance there. P4. Probably didn't expect it after the pace we saw in the sprint race. But yeah, very, very impressive stuff to get up amongst the big boys at the front of the field. And now we'll just have to people apply their setup. Strategy's going to be interesting. Those soft tyres for Patterson in the sprint race didn't really work. He got rid of them pretty sharpishly, probably courtesy of clattering the wall on lap 3 as well. But the meta, I hate that word, really hate that word, but the meta so far this season and last season has been to start on the harder compound tyres and move to the softer ones. I think we will probably be seeing medium to soft. Some people might chance it further down, trying to pick up as much track position as possible early on and then back everybody up and try and hold on later on. But I think we could... Well, I say we've said it every week, right? The strategy that seems to win you the race is going medium to soft, medium to soft. No, the majority of people don't use it.
It makes sense, to be honest. In terms of pace in these Formula 2 cars, obviously everything's so similar. Using an overcut is so much stronger when all the, at least lap times are so similar to one another. And also, one thing, it's kind of ironic. I'm 15 years old, but I do not like any of the new gen words. I'm not one of those people. You can take a breath. Anyway.
Cool.
Getting into racing very, very soon.
Really applying those strategies. We'll wait and see what people do. It is what the guys go for. Dale, as usual, lining up on pole position with his teammates directly behind him rather than alongside. What can F1 Scott do? What can Lolin Ober do? B-Roy brilliant qualifying there ahead of Spurrier and G-Watch. Those two had a bit of a tete-a-tete last week in Singapore. Dragonfly's Dark Viper will be maybe a little bit disappointed to be down the order a little bit, and then it's the 2 Tridents ahead of Dirk. And the guys further back, Duncan, Alex Blood, Zach Garcia and Patterson not quite lining up second and third as they were last time. Damien as well, disappointing to be down in 17th after finishing 4th in the sprint race. Maybe we'll look to see that second ART, try and climb through the field through the 16 laps of this race.
I must admit, I haven't seen a whole lot from Lolin Ober. Obviously in P4, so clearly competitive throughout the field. What's kind of been their positions throughout the field? I mean, right now, they're not in the top 10 in the championship. I
believe this is a debut for Lolin Ober, unless it's a change in username. I'm fairly sure.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think I've seen this driver before, so that's why I'm kind of asking if maybe they were their previous races and maybe anything I may have not watched. But yeah, no, a new name, whatever the case may be. Hopefully they can show up at the moment. They've done well, P4 on the grid and 16 laps to try and make up positions. It's very possible they could maybe potentially finish on the podium. You have some top 3 class drivers, however, and Dale, your championship leader and the man who's trying to chase down his championship, as I mentioned just before. Yeah, it's right now looking a bit easy, but can he try and pull away? That's one thing. Try and not get any wheel spin off the line. Try and not need to defend too hard. It can see yourself losing out time to anyone behind him, and then it could end up being a much harder fight for himself. So if Dale can get away well and try and have that consistency lap by lap, then maybe it can go well for him. Maybe we don't even need to see him overtake a car or two. Obviously, if he comes into the pit lane at some point, then it's very possible. And a good mixture of those softs and mediums, obviously that is your tyre allocation for this race weekend at Miami.
It's an interesting one. F1 Out's going for the alternate strategy compared to his teammate and F1 Scott on those medium tyres. Had a stinker in the sprint race, only lasted about 4 laps, picked up about 4 penalties as well during the course of the sprint, but hoping to return to form and try and keep this championship fight alive until Imola next week. Although if it stays as is, Dale will be taking the championship and that first promotion spot back to F1 when we jump onto the new game in just a few weeks' time. Very exciting coming soon, F1 24. Anybody else we've got to keep our eye on? Dirk Chocolate on the soft tyres, as we've seen very frequently.
We'll keep an eye out on Adam Sanderson, right? He's clearly going to get a podium today, so we'll need to keep an eye out on that one. Here's a little random one for you, just in case, you know, tyre deg becomes a much larger conversation later down the line. Your track temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, and your air temperature is 29 degrees Celsius. So it's quite a hot one out on the circuit today. And donuts for what I believe is Patterson in P16 as he starts lining up on his grid position, getting some roasty toasty tyres up to temperature.
That's not going to do those soft tyres any good at all. We can't get a very good camera angle, unfortunately, but we are 5 red lights ahead of the drivers. And for the penultimate time this season, it is lights out and away we go. Still can't get a very good camera angle. Scott with a poor start, got a car further back. Brilliant start. I think that's a Van Amersfoort. F1 Alex trying to go around the outside of F1 Scott down into turn number 1 and try and get that second place, and does so very successfully. There's Scott fighting back and drifting through turn number 3 to get ahead. And now Lolinoba's on the move, trying to relegate F1X down into 4th as they're going to battle up towards turn number 4. Who's going to be late on the brakes? I think it's going to be F1X backing out, probably sensibly enough. Further back, everyone's managed to keep it very nice and tidy, thankfully. Behind them, Sprite all over the back of B-Roy in the battle for 5th and 6th. Going around the outside, in fact, is G-Watts trying to get past the dams of Sprite. Who's going to come out on top in this little squabble? G-Watts, I think, in the victor has got through. Dark Viper and Dragonfly's debating 8th and 9th, with Duncan getting up into 10th. The two Tridents, terrible starts, 12th and 16th now.
Yeah, right now you can see MP Motorsport going in against Roden Carl in P8 and 9 right on the rear diffuser, potentially looking for it. You also just go another position up. Sproat in P7 looking for a move from the outside, makes contact to the rear diffuser. Now you can see Dragonfiles making a great switchback, trying to make it through both dryers. Now continuing back up through elevation changes into the very tight chicane where you pretty much can't go wheel to wheel without sending someone onto the runoff. Doesn't seem like it went completely clean. Adam Sanderson down to P13. Alex Budd on the outside of Adam Sanderson. P12 is where he currently stands. Slight contact made to the barrier and Adam, but P12's now stuck in stone, at least for the time being. Dirk Chocolate, P11, getting close to Duncan at the moment. Close racing between every single one of these drivers as we go a little further up. Looks like it's close margins between P1 and P2 as well. F1 Scott only 2/10 behind. Dark Viper GT now up to P8 against Sproat in P9. Dirk Chocolate does make the move up to P10. It also looks like it's still wheel-to-wheel action between Alex Budd and Duncan at the moment as they go back up into turn 1. And it's still close between Adam Sanderson and Alex Budd, but doesn't seem to make anything too further of that. Contention still between these two, though. A little bit of a sneak down on that outside line. And Lolinoba, the driver we were speaking about before, into the barrier, needing to not reverse too far out. Will hit a driver, has got going down in P19.
Yeah, just saw it.
And 5-second time penalty.
Yeah, face first into the barrier. Not sure who the contact was. I think it might have been with Dragonflies potentially, although don't quote me on that one. It leaves B-Roy right on the back of F1 Alex, and F1 Scott further forward, right on the back of Mr. Dale. Dale could have his work cut out here because F1 Scott looking very racy. Purple in the first sector. This could be the move for the lead. Dale knows he doesn't have to fight this too hard because the championship is very much currently in his lap. Around the outside, we're going to go with F1 Scott. Dale's going to defend this down the inside, late on the brakes. Will we try the old switcheroo maybe on the exit? No, covered off nicely by Dale. Holds onto the lead. Further back, B-Roy skating off the circuit in his attempts to try and get past F1 Axe in that second Campos car, sorry. Both of them on the defensive. F1 Axe holds on as well. Dark Viper and Dragonflies battling very hard into the horrible twisty sector of the middle sector. Clattering over the curbs is the Roland Carlin car. This is the MP Motorsport still on the inside. You can see all the damage to the side pod of, I think that was Dark Viper on the outside. Not looking good there.
Dark Chocolate's actually going to get another good run through. Sorry for interrupting on Dragonfiles as well. Just looking on that outside line. Oh god, contact made to the right of end plate of Duncan in the VAR. It's actually Dragonfile, sorry. Dirk Chocolate just trying to sneak in his nose. Goes all wrong. Now going into turn 17. Down the inside does go Dirk Chocolate. Potential front wing damage for him as well. He let yellow flag. Third and final sector. What's happened through there? Looks like it's Alex Budd going quite slow at the moment. The high-tech GP couldn't seem to get the getaway necessary. Down to P17 he goes. And F1 Alex now up to P3 against B-Roy. More contact being made between Adam Sanderson and Dragonfiles as well.
Oh, wow. Dragonflies can't get enough of it at the moment. Just squeezing Dirk into the wall. Not sure there was really a space there. We didn't quite see what was going on. We just saw them get pushed into the barrier and they got glued onto each other, both picking up severe damage. You would expect they're going to fall through the field a little bit, although Dirk right up on the rear wing of the Van Aelsvoort car of Duncan. Further forward, F1X has lost 4.5 seconds to the leading duo. Dale still trying to hold on to that place ahead of F1 Scott, although you can see Scott gaining once again, this time with the helping hand of DRS. No room around the outside though. That door is firmly slammed shut and Dale will hold on to the lead for the time being. B-Roy and F1X continue their scrap over that final spot on the podium. This time the ART driver keeps it on the circuit and within the white lines and gets up into third. I think it is Adam Sanderson. No, you put the knockers on him.
Big pile up into the runoff area towards turn number 14, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But big amount of damage could potentially be on display there. Looks like it's 3 wide going up towards the elevation point. Now you can see Zach RC and Punju making further contact. It's absolute carnage near the end of the field. Now you can see Hoodie Pete sending it down the inside of Punju. Go a little further up. It looks like it could be a 3-way battle pretty soon in the back straight. Adam Sanderson has DRS. So does Lolan Noba. No DRS for Zach RC. Just the victim of another slipstream attack on the inside line. Adam Sanderson did not have the room. 2 wide, however. Could potentially become 3 wide if he gets the exit. Adam Sanderson on the inside, but not close enough. Dark Viper GT up to P5 against G-Watts and P6 as we continue through wheel-to-wheel action, staying with Zach RC and Lolan Noba. Lolan Noba still on that inside, outside line, but Zach RC holding that inside, now loses our position, brakes a little bit too late, using the weight of the car, couldn't get it slowed down in time, now going wide once again onto the runoff, onto the Rolex runoff, and now continuing on further. Adam Sanderson's closer towards Lolanova, Dark Viper GT back up to P4, fighting between these two again, continuing through the S's, and fighting is so close between these two. Adam Sanderson now down the inside, spending him wide at the moment. Lolanova back down to P16. Punju loses out time. Hoodie Pete loses out time. So with Zach RC down in P19. The battle's not over, but let's quickly switch back over to the battle between Dark Viper GT and F1 Alex. A fantastic battle between these two at the moment.
Yeah, it was a mistake from F1 Alex. Championship going out of the window at the moment as Dark Viper absolutely flying on those soft compound tyres and should be relegating B-Roy back down into 4th any time shortly. Zach RC, we saw him heading off into the advertising boardings, into the Rolex boardings. Probably time to make a pit stop, fella, because that front wing is not going to be in a good state at all. Battle for the lead potentially going on, but this is for 3rd and 4th. Through goes Dark Viper further forward. F1 Scott not close enough to make that move, but Dark Viper is going to confirm 3rd place and try and chase after the leaders. But he's got 6 seconds to make up. That's going to be very, very tricky. Further back, G-Watts right at the back of this.
B-Roy could still come back at him.
I doubt it. I don't think he's going to have the traction compared to these soft tyres, which look absolutely monstrous at this stage of the race. All the drivers flying on the red stripe soft tyres at the moment. Dirk's into the pits. That's probably courtesy of the damage picked up earlier on. Dragonflies is right on the back of Duncan, still sporting that heavy, heavy damage to the right-hand side of the front wing. So that just behind Duncan in 9th place, and then a bit of a gap back to Damien. And this huge kerfuffle that we've seen on the previous lap. The Tridents and the Pramers getting involved. Alex Budd and Lolin Ober as well, the 2 high-tech cars down there.
And just before we switch over to lap 5, it was actually F1 Scott who was lapping faster than Mr. Dale. This time round, it's actually Mr. Dale who's 3/10 quicker than what F1 Scott lapped in last time. So right now, it is Mr. Dale with the advantage, but I do not doubt for a second he could potentially find a little bit more pace using that DRS as well towards his advantage. Obviously, no hybrid system in these V6s, naturally aspirated as well, no turbochargers located. And right now, as you can see, looking on that inside line, doesn't seem to send it for G-Watts in P6, but lining a potential move against F1 Alex, just being aware of some of the drivers behind, because Sproat's only 3/10 behind him, G-Watts obviously only 3/10. Ooh, a bit of a slip there going up in elevation, but keeps it in one direction, which is the main point indeed. Gets a little bit wide, closer to the barrier there, and Sproat just doesn't have the pace or momentum or grip to try and make a move on that inside line. It looks like 800 separating Punju to Lolanoba, a bit of racing going through the chicane, but gaps are really starting to be a bit more significant, apart from P7 and 6 at the moment.
F1 Scott's through, down into turn 17. Scott managed to get past Dale, but Dale's going to fight this, cutting the beam to start lap number 6. They almost bang wheels as they cross the start-finish line. Who's going to be last of the late breakers? Down into turn number 1. I think it's going to be Dale braver on the brakes. Switcheroo executed by F1 Scott to try and get back up into the lead. They're fighting very, very hard. Eventually, Dale has to concede and lose it, but goes way too wide. Manages to just about catch the squirm that he has on the exit. We've got battles going on further back, but this is for the lead of the race. Swinging it around the outside of 4 is Mr. Dale. Beautiful stuff to hold on to P1, and Scott for the time being is going to have to stay behind, but there's a DRS straight coming up very, very shortly, which will be another chance for the PHM driver to get that lead.
That is some incredible confidence. I was going to say something else, but probably not good for Creator Series viewers. Either way, DRS active for F1 Scott. P2 at the moment. He's going to get another opportunity on the outside line, most likely defending the inside is Mr. Dale, but Mr. Dale has no opportunity to try and come back and try and keep that inside line, but now can, as they come into the braking point, make sure to brake a little bit early. The outside does brake much later, and that weight from the Formula 2 car may not work in his favor, making sure that that chassis would lean forward because of the braking, going over the couple of sausage curves, making sure to actually avoid it, through onto the apex of turn 15, but now out of the exit through on 16. It's Mr. Dale back down to P2. F1 Scott finally does have a good lead over P2 of Mr. Dale. Can he keep it through on this back straight? It's looking very close to it, and right now yellow flag, second sector. It's Hoodie P who goes spinning round. Dirk Chocolate another 14 seconds down on that.
As one Campos goes backwards, the other one really struggling for pace as well. F1X has almost dropped out of DRS range of B-Roy in front, with Sprout and G-Watts squabbling behind. Goes very wide. F1X drifts through the final corner. F1 Scott's into the pits meanwhile, so he gets the lead and then decides now's the time to come in for an undercut. So interesting strategy there taken up by Scott. We'll see if he comes out in some traffic. Maybe he's found a nice little gap. F1X under pressure from Sprout down to turn 1. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Has a little tentative look up the inside, but thinks better of it. We've got more yellow flags. I think it's a Prema once again in the mud, going down into turn 17. Patterson this time, both of them having absolute stinkers this weekend, unfortunately enough. Now Sprout's got to be careful of G-Watts. All these guys, nose to tail, not close enough.
Punju saying it down the inside. A little bit of contact between him and Alex, but Alex has to back out of it on the outside line. But that was a little bit feisty between the two for a little bit. Has backed out of it. However, as we go a little bit further down, obviously the bottom 3 now coming into the pit lane. It was F1 Scott who decides, I'm going to go on an undercut strategy. Now, these medium compound tires, it's very clear to see, even in any type of situation, any type of racing, if it's endurance, if it's Formula 2, Formula 1, Formula 3, for all we know, if it's DTM, the one thing that's always happened with these compounds of tires, especially mediums, it's never going to work in the first couple of laps. You are going to be slower than the drivers ahead of you, even on people on 6-lap old mediums. But once they kind of get into that like perfect area of you know, temperature, of degradation, it's gone through some of the fresh clean layers of it, so now you're really starting to wipe down rubber onto the tarmac. That's when you're getting the pure traction from those mediums. So F1 Scott really is looking for the long-term gain out of this. My question, has he done it too early, and will he end up losing out more time near the end of the race because he's going to have too much degradation, or has he planned it to perfection? As we now see F1 Alex looking to go down the inside of Sproat, does brake early, making sure not to go late and make contact, still keeping that will to action alive, and right now doesn't look like any of them coming into the pit lane. Dale will follow in pursuit, obviously has to cover off that undercut, otherwise he's going to continue to lose out time to F1 Scott, and then it's just not going to work in his favor. Looks like F1 Alex, however, will now need to defend off G-Watts, but however, G-Watts not close enough, and so this little top 5 battle just seems to disperse a little bit. I'm sure it will come back in a little bit of time.
Well, I think F1 Alex might struggle to keep up with Sprout now, because the pace from that second Campos has been very, very concerning. Out of the pits comes Dale. Where is he in relation to F1
and
Scott?
Behind F1 Scott.
Behind, but not by too much. He's had to react to the move taken by Scott, which is going to put him in a little bit of traffic that they've got to negotiate fairly quickly. It's the two Tridents first up, but they have come out in a nice little pocket of space for the time being. We'll wait and see when these medium runners come into the pits further forward. F1 Alex, like I predicted actually, really struggling to hold on to that DRS of Sprout in front, and that could potentially present G-Watts with another opportunity to get ahead of the ailing Campos driver. Not the only thing that's ailing is his pace, but his championship hopes as well, starting to be thrown out of the window, and he's coming up towards the last dog saloon at this point.
F1 Scott also just potentially making a move against Punju. Outside line has the DRS. Those tires wouldn't be using its full extent of its grip. However, would be up to temperature, so has at least some type of friction to the tarmac. It does make the move on the outside line, and F1 Scott now up to P9 on the grid. Not too shabby from the driver driving for... Oh, God, what is PHM? I believe PHM. Yes. I may be wrong. There's so many Formula 2 teams nowadays. It's so hard to keep up with it. I'm saying that I know all the teams for N24. Anyway, looks like the gaps are starting to extend throughout the field. I actually saw Dale
F1
just
Alex
getting a little too slippy at the moment.
Wide. Sorry to cut in there again, but F1 Alex making a complete mess of this race at the moment. Went way too wide going through 17. Just got dragged out towards the barrier on the right-hand side, it seemed. Almost losing a place. GWATS, if he was just maybe a little bit more aggressive, would have got ahead of that Campos driver. But as we are, or as we were now.
F1, that's funny. Oh, well, hang on. You said F1 Alex, right? And then there's F1 Scott. See, there's two F1s in the names, and it gets me mixed up. Anyway, no, F1 Alex P3, like you mentioned, went a little bit wide. GWATS is actually right on his rear diffuser as well. No shock at all. F1 Scott does pick up fastest lap on those fresh new medium compound tyres. More drivers in pursuit, and you're right, GWATS down the inside, late on the brakes, gets the rotation through towards turn number 6. Does now need to defend, however. Will be DRS towards F1 Alex, and this should be a pretty easy move to make. Switches to the outside line, making sure to avoid any type of contact. You also obviously want to avoid making contact with the barrier. Does a fantastic job. Sticks right on the imprinted curb on the tarmac. Avoid the runoff area. You want to brake late, but not too late. Otherwise, you'll see the weight of the car working less in your favor. And now you can see GWATS using the inside line. Got the traction down a little quicker. Clearly had the better racing line using this specific spec of car. And now sees himself staying in P3.
Yeah, good move. Was a little bit ice skatey on the apex of turn number 11 and eventually just sort of ran F1X out of road, and the Campos driver having to concede. And that could be the nail in the coffin, the final nail in the coffin. They said he was coming up to the Last Chance Saloon a couple of laps ago. I think he's firmly sat at the bar now of the Last Chance Saloon. Needs something to happen to his championship rival and teammate. But at the moment, Dale looking fairly comfortable as he's closed a little bit on F1 Scott in the battle for what is the net race lead, but 8th and 9th at the moment. Diving into the pits is Sprite, the first of the medium runners out of our leading contenders to blink, and that will leave GWATS to try and defend from F1 Alex.
Right now, F1 Alex still trying to potentially make a move on GWATS, as you mentioned, fending off. GWATS has started to bring a bit more momentum in his favor. 2.5 seconds separating him to B-Roy in P1. We're starting to get to that point where some of the drivers still remaining in these top positions, Luke Howick, F1 Alex, GWATS, B-Roy, all need to start thinking about when they want to come into the pit lane. People like F1 Scott obviously making full advantage of this undercut strategy that they have gone for from the softs to the mediums. Like I mentioned before, the real question is, right, how is his tires going to do in 6 laps time when we get to that final lap of racing? Because at that point, if people are boxing around that 9-lap period or for those tires, at least in terms of degradation, maybe with him getting to that 9-lap-old degradation point on lap 16 of 16, maybe he may feel just a little bit uncomfortable on the tires. Maybe he could potentially make a mistake. This is all theoreticals, but it's all very possible. We'll have to wait and see what F1 Scott kind of has to deal with near the latter part of this race. Whatever the case may be, making a move against Luke Howick up to P4 he goes.
And Luke Howick, one of 5 drivers still yet to make a stop. The top 3 ahead of Scott yet to pit, as is the Van Arsdale. And Hoodie Pete currently in 11th. He's had few adventures in this race so far. You can see though Dale is catching up to the back of them. We'll use the DRS to try and get past Luke Howick in the Van Arsdale, but the Van Arsdale will get the DRS from F1 Scott in front, so it might be a little bit harder than Dale would have thought. Dragonflies, who's come out on new mediums, sat just behind the no-stopping Hoodie Pete at this stage, being compromised in this middle sector. Will we try the old switcheroo, maybe try and swing it around the outside? Surely there's not going to be a lot of space there, but very, very respectful racing, it has to be said there from Hoodie Pete. Gave a lot of room to the MP Motorsport car, who does get up into 11th. Dale gets past Luke Howick as the top 3 all peel off into the pits.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right now, Mr. Dale currently with a 141.528. He's starting to find that competitive side to those tires. Like I said, after 2 to 3 laps, that's their perfect. I don't really know how you could put it. It's their prime temperature and degradation. To be honest, there's so many other parts of the tire that is kind of left out. But yeah, right now that it's probably in its best opportunity to make moves. It has the most grip. It has the most traction. It has the best temperature. It's not overheating. It's not, cooling down. It's not ripping off rubber. It's in a perfect point on the circuit right now. Purple in the first sector by 0.2, and I can actually prove using my live telemetry that is exactly the case. Right now, he is looking quite competitive, and right now looking like the favorite to potentially retake this P1. Clearly looking to potentially go far fastest lap again and will be helped with the fact that he's getting a nice slipstream and the use of DRS, but needs to be careful. If he needs to brake a little bit too early, he'll probably lose out on time, but I'm sure he's not worried about time. He's worried about positions as they go up in elevation towards the chicane and up towards that back straight. This is the perfect opportunity for Dale to retake it. He has the tyre advantage against Scott by a single lap, but one lap can be the deficit between winning and losing in Formula 2. It's simply because of the size of these tyres. The carcass is so much smaller, degradation is higher, rubber can flick off like no tomorrow, and right now Dale looks towards it, but no, stays where he is. Slipstream still being used behind, and right now Dale is just sizing up a move, gets a little bit too flimsy on the rear there.
Is not going to be a big fan of that. Sproat and B-Roy squabbling over 4th and 5th. B-Roy was spat out of the pits on his new set of soft compound tyres right into the path of the dams, and they've been squabbling for pretty much this entire lap, and I think it's B-Roy in the ART that has just managed to come out on top in this battle. G-Watts just behind, who was in this battle before the pit stops, has also been hurt by the undercut, has come out with Duncan and Dirk Chocolate. Had to get past both of those drivers. F1 Alex in that little group as well, from 6th down into 10th. Dragonflies trying to catch up to them further back as well. Jumping back to our leading contenders though, Scott a little bit wobbly through the first sector, not a great run through turns 4, 5 and 6, and this could be the opportunity that Dale needs to get this lead back. They had a brilliant battle a few laps ago before the pit stop window, and Scott immediately peeled off into the pits, but I think the undercut, which got him a little bit of a margin when he came out of the pits, is now going to disappear as Dale, using the DRS2 as effect, going defensive as F1 Scott. This should be like candy from a baby. Around the outside we go with Dale. Scott is going to try and defend it up the inside, but I think Dale on those fresher tyres is going to have the grip around the outside, turns to the inside of the corner, and that is the lead of the race.
It's not real shocking, to be honest. This is a normal, almost classic illustration of what happens with an undercut strategy. If you have the laps remaining, anyone who's on that overcut will find that they're on the fresher tires because they boxed later, which means obviously they lose position in the beginning because of anyone that may have undercut, but clearly now with the advantage. DRS is in the favor of F1 Scott, and to be honest, he could potentially think about making it. Yes, he is. Outside line, maybe that swerving didn't really work in the favor for Dale. Could have lost out a potential 10th or 2. Isn't going to actually make a move, but F1 Scott is still really there at the moment, but no, losing out a bit more time. The wheel's spinning a bit too much. Couldn't get the traction down. Still close, but not close enough to make a move going into turn 1. Dale now clearly has a good lead ahead of him. Sproat P4 making a move against B-Roy.
Yeah, these two have been playing bumper cars for the last couple of laps, allowing G-Watts to catch up. B-Roy went way too late on the brakes into turn 17, went straight on and off the road, trying to use the slipstream to get this place back. Gave himself some DRS by making the mistake. Up the inside into turn 1 we go, and these two are going to continue their battle through the first sector, you would imagine. It's Dams versus ART. Very close for comfort there, and a little bit of a jink over. Pushes Sproat off the circuit, but B-Roy gets a little bit out of shape himself, but holds on to 4th place for the time being. Luke is closing up to the back of them though. It is G-Watts with F1 Alex trying to charge after them as well. This could be a 4-way scrap for position number 4 with Dark Viper 10 seconds up the road with only 3.5 laps left to go.
5.2 seconds still to cut down, and realistically that was at its absolute maximum 6.5, so I do doubt that gap's going to come down to probably the amount they want. 4.5 tenths, and now 3.5 tenths set parading F1 Scott to Mr. Dale. Still close. Yellow flags deployed for what I can only assume is probably the Prema of Hoodie Pete down in P18. Not trying to mean any offense, but it has been Prema majority of the time. There has been a yellow flag. Dirk Chocolate down to P10. Wiltor actually between these two, outside line for Dirk Chocolate, trying to fight back against Dragonfiles. Looks like it's going to be Dragonfiles defending right on the middle of the circuit. Dirk's still right there, but no has back out of it. Well and truly breaks early going into the chicane, and Dragonfile, I keep saying Files, it is Flies. I do apologize to Flies, but habit is, you know, it's going to tend to probably stick there anyway. DRS will be active for Dirk Chocolate, but over a second separating, it's pretty much impossible for him to gain any further time out of that, and a bit of contact being made to Sproat against B-Roy.
Yeah, they're still going at it, hammer and tonk. F1 Alex and G-Watts catching them at a rate of knots. Scott still sat right underneath the rear wing of Dale as well. As we start lap number 14, going very defensive is B-Roy down into turn 1, not giving Sproat an opportunity to try and send it up the inside, but maybe a little bit offline. He's trying the block tactics actually, and it's worked out to his advantage as we stay as we were. F1 Out's not actually catch them as much as I thought. Still 2 seconds further back, and it's Duncan, Dragonflies, and Dirt Chocolate rounding out our top 10. Adam Sanson, that podium that we predicted looking slightly unlikely at the moment, and I think out in front, Dale has decided now is go time, because that gap is now up towards 9/10. Up the inside is GWATS, a little bit offline is Spirit. Perfect opportunity for the Invictor to snatch P5 from under the nose of the Dams driver, and that is beautiful stuff from GWATS. Opportunistic but beautifully executed, but he's going to be under pressure once again because he didn't get the best of exits. Does has DRS to try and help him as well. Almost squeezes the Dams into the barrier. Spirit looking for any tiny gap possible to get his car alongside the Invictor of GWATS. Both going to be catching B-Roy as well. This could be a bit of an aeroplane crash if the closing speed is significant enough. Around the outside we go with GWATS, cutting the corner as well. And does hold on to P5 for the time being. Surely one of these two have got to back out because you can't go side by side in this section, and it is the Dams that has to concede.
That is incredibly close between those two. Sprite and GWATS not giving up a second of pace at the moment. Right now, GWATS does have advantage. However, now has the slipstream and toe going down the back straight. DRS will also be active for GWATS. Nothing towards B-Roy, but has a gap of 5/10 and now continuing to go weaving left and right, trying to avoid any type of advantage using the slipstream from the DRS. We start the penultimate lap of racing as Dale comes across the line to start that lap. And right now, I believe it is championship in his favor, yes?
Absolutely, yeah. With F1 it's down the order in P7. Probably not going to gain too many more places, you would imagine. I think he's going to get one from Sprite potentially. Up the inside is GWATS. Had a terrible exit out of the final corner. Did B-Roy in the ART, the two Alpine livery cars going at it. Hammer and Tong still over 4th and 5th. F1X needs to get a move on if he's going to keep this championship in his grasp, but it's looking like it's fading away very, very quickly now. The penultimate lap of the race, Dark Viper has slowly been gaining on the leading duo, but still that gap is 4 seconds, and then a further 10 back to this battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th, and potentially 7th if F1X gets a move on. This could be GWATS' opportunity. Sprite on 1 lap older tyres, maybe starting to fade away as he's almost dropped out of 1 second, and this could be GWATS' opportunity. He's bided his time, had a brilliant move up the inside of Sprite to claim 5th place on the previous lap. This could be a much easier move to get 4th place on this lap. These two have battled very hard in the sprint race. They're going to continue it, the two Alpine livery cars. Baby Blue battles for position 4 just outside the podium places. It's over to the left-hand side to defend his B-Roy. The switchback trying to be executed by GWATS, but doesn't get the traction on the exit and stays in 5th place for the time being. But you would imagine with DRS down that long back straight into turn 17, that will be the opportunity as Dale's managed to break DRS range to F1 Scott in the battle for 1st and 2nd on the final lap of this race. Almost pushing B-Roy through turn number 16 there is GWATS.
I've got a really good idea for the championship. Anyway, DRS now active for GWATS at the moment. Slipstream and toe looking very high at the moment towards B-Roy at the moment. Inside line will send it, but wouldn't really be much of a send before they even need to break into the corner, but still staying wheel to wheel. It is later on the brakes for the outside. As I mentioned, you can go later on the brakes on the outside line. There is more room. There is more opportunity on the racing line. You can go the full way round compared to that inside. Right now, you can see GWATS down to P5 again. Dragonflies, P8 making a move against Duncan at the moment. VAR still has an opportunity to try and come back at him. Both of them having 9-lap old medium compound tyres, quite even throughout the field, and the couple of soft compound runners so far. Dale is well and truly out in front ahead, not really being endangered by any other driver behind. 1.2 seconds if he's able to keep that consistency, keep the lap times that we've seen ever so slightly. And right now, I'm sure his heart is pounding. He knows the championship is right over the corner at the moment. He's so close. He can feel it with both his hands on the trophy. He just has a little bit longer to go. Dark Viper GT currently P3, 4.5 seconds behind. He was actually able to cut it down by another second. Nothing so far. Good racing still taking place between GWATS and Sproat, and GWATS on the outside line. He's going to potentially go for it. Late on the brakes again. DRS now shuts. The flap closes on the rear wing and now gets the bit of a kick from the rear of the car. B-Roy still holding that inside line. However, defending is fantastic from ART. Simply magnificent between these two. But Dale is the man in the spotlight on a fantastic day. The sun is out here in Miami, ladies and gentlemen. The tires are burning. The racing has been absolutely incredible. Fierce throughout the field. But this man has been able to put on one hell of a season. A showcase, you could say. And Mr. Dale J.E. wins the Formula 2 Creator Series Championship. F1 Scott P2. Dark Viper GT P3. G-Watts P4 and B-Roy gonna continue to go will to will.
Whoa.
DRS is active, but it's still G-Watts who goes P4. B-Roy couldn't get it done. Close margins, but it still works in the favor of G-Watts. Wow, oh wow, close racing between the two baby blue Formula 2 cars. Racing continues as we continue to come across the timing line. Fantastic racing here in Miami. DRS is active, the slipstream in tow is larger than ever before. Prema looking down the inside, Hildy Pitt will swords close. Bit of contact made between the two. Zach RC gets the, it's fantastic in his favor. Consistency components working in his favor. It is Zach RC that stays P15, Hoodie Pete P16, Alex Budd at P17 with a 5-second time penalty that was unserved. Patterson doing donuts. Oh, lovely from him. A little celebration for our champion, and Lolanova up to P18. Patterson will finish in P9 when he does decide to stop burning smoke on that rubber. But hey, we could watch this all day if we really wanted to.
Well, the talking points, we've got a few to talk about. G-Watts, it's been a late charge for the playoffs, and it was a very late charge for P4. Got it in the end by 21 milliseconds over the line. B-Roy, his playoff hopes might be going down the drain a little bit after a disappointing week last time out in Singapore after an unfair disqualification, we should put it, but picks up a decent handful of points and will keep himself in the fray going into the finale. We're still waiting for Patterson. We need to get the results up, man. We need to have a final look at the standings before we go to our interviews, and then we kick everybody out to go and watch the sprint race in real life. But it is Dale, like you said, your champion. He's going back to F2. He stated it at the start of the season. He wants to be the one that gets himself back. He wants to enjoy F2. He wants to complete that revenge arc, that return to glory arc that he spoke about. And he's done it in fine fashion because, let's be honest, he's dominated the season, hasn't he? He's been so in control for the whole of it. F1 X put up a brilliant fight for the majority of it, but eventually just running out of steam. We are going to talk to your champion in a few moments' time. But Jamie, when we get it up on screen, of course, because we need to look at the podium quickly, do you want to take us through that final running order?
Absolutely. I should probably open the Twitch, shouldn't I? Hang on a minute. And then create a series because I'm already following, and everyone should do the exact same.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, there we go. No, what a fantastic race, though. Miami, like I said, can really put a show on display when you're given the right spec of cars, and they did exactly that. And Formula 2, something about it, the way they drive, they're so specific to their class of car, you know. They're still somehow, no matter how small they are and what looks to be quite limited aerodynamics, they're still 5 seconds faster than an LMP1 car, which isn't used anymore. Now we see LMDH and LMH cars nowadays, and that's used in WEC and IMSA, but no, I mean, Formula 2 still somehow shows how to be competitive and how to be entertaining, and they did exactly that today here in Miami. Mr. Dale is your Formula 2 Creator Series champion here for technically the second season of it, but obviously we're now into, Season 7 of Creator Series? Season 6 of Creator Series, I was close. But yeah, now you can see the those standings there. It's, what a fantastic race. Clearly showing what they can do when everything is on the line.
Well, we have got some interviews to conduct. I think it's only fair we wait just a little bit to talk to Dale. I think we should talk to the main protagonist, or the main other protagonist from this race, which was F1 Scott, who put in an absolutely brilliant show. As I should probably not show the game as we load back into the lobby there, and get us back onto our lovely faces there. It's going to be beautiful to have a little look at. We're going to go for Dale quickly, in fact, just to get that going. So if we go into the interview waiting room, if we bring Dale in. Hello, Dale. You are the champion.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he's screamed too loud.
Come on. The practice, the perseverance, the commitment has paid off. We did it. But we didn't do it easily. I got to say, Scott. Oh my goodness, he made that difficult. He made that a war for that final round. Exactly what I wanted. Incredible battle. He is something else. I loved every minute of that.
Well, the racing we saw between you and Scott was absolutely fantastic. Both of you going 110%. It was brilliant to watch.
The discipline.
Oh, the discipline. I mean, you must be so pleased, though, because not only winning the championship, but you've done it with a brilliant race victory as well. What a perfect way to sign off. Or I know there's one race left, but perfect way to get it over the line.
Yeah. I wanted to win it today because I'm not gonna lie, I do want to head over to the F1 grid for the final round and do both rounds, and take on the F1 grid as the champion. So see how that goes. But honestly, the feature race, it was incredible. It was such a good race. No safety cars, not a sniff of like, I didn't see nothing. All I saw was good racing, good spread. I don't know what happened in the action side of things. Really looking back forward to watching the broadcast, but I hope me and Scott gave you a good show.
Absolutely what. Jamie,
I mean,
what do you want to say?
yeah, I mean, I can hear it. I can hear the positivity in his voice. You're
over the
clearly
moon.
very, very happy to win this championship, and please be our guest and go watch back that little commentary from us. It was a pleasure commentating you win that championship. It was a pleasure once again commentating Creator Series overall. But one thing I do want to comment on, obviously throughout that feature race, there was a little strategy move that F1 Scott did decide to go for. Obviously the undercut, he decided to box a lap earlier compared to you. I'm going to assume you probably boxed probably A, because your tires were dying, or 2, because you needed to cover off what F1 Scott was doing. But what was kind of going through your mindset through that strategy? Obviously your plan was to do the overcut, hope your tires were going to work later on down the line, and that's exactly what happened.
So honestly, I was hoping, I knew he'd come out in traffic. I was going to box the same lap as him. I saw where the traffic was looking. I knew he'd get held up a little bit. And he did. Yeah. It was beautiful. I boxed a lap later, managed to get on the medium tire. I had a little bit of a squibbly pit entry because I didn't know where the line was. But come out of the pit 1.4 seconds behind him. Oh, I was looking up. I was loving that. He like fumbled the undercut, but still that made for such a war. I had better tires, but I used that better bit of tires I have to overlap Punju because he was sort of the bridge between us. So got past him. I'd use that extra bit of tires, and then yeah, those last 3 laps I had to find something else in that car because that was difficult to keep. It's that spoon left-hander. I think it's like turn 5 or 6, whatever it is, before the long DRS straight. Honestly, when the tires fall off, getting that front end in is hell.
What's the traction like? Is there just a real like suffering for grip at the moment?
There really is. The front,
that little curve, right?
The understeer is phenomenal. Phenomenal. If you carry a bit too much entry speed, you get a bit too leery with it. You're like, yeah, I can carry the brakes. You'll just go sliding forward, wash out, and literally that really does affect your pace going the whole way down the straight. A little thing to add on today from today's race as well. I had to get a babysitter in today to cover me for the 2 hours so I could come and win the championship today. So if I would have crashed out, it would have been some money lost, and I would have been extremely emotional. So yeah, shout out to the babysitter for letting me race today.
You can use that championship money towards that babysitter maybe. And but no, what a fantastic win in your favor.
Thank you guys.
And, it's clearly been a fantastic race win for you and a championship win overall.
We're there. I'm looking forward to getting into F1 next season, and thank you for everything, guys, this season.
Thank you very much for talking to us, and we wish you the best of luck for next week and in the seasons as well.
Good luck, guys. Thank you very much. Peace out.
Yeah.
We've spoken to the champion of race winner. I think we've got to talk to the man that pushed him so close at the end as I spat all over my microphone there. It's too exciting.
Oh, nice.
F1 Scott, so close but yet so far. You pushed Dale all the way, but in the end, not quite able to get over the line. But you must be really pleased with that result.
I needed this. I needed this today to get a lot of points to kind of get into the playoffs and not mess it up. But I'm so tired. Like, I thought I had it. I thought it was going to be my first win, and then for like 3 laps, Dale just like turned the engine on and just kind of like I was 2 seconds ahead, and then I look back and he's there, and then he does this weird line going into the DRS straight, and then he's just off. Amazing. Fair play to him.
Well, I think we need to talk about the playoff race first, because the form over the last few weeks has been a little bit shaky. You've been picking up fairly consistent points, but this was a real return to form, wasn't it? You must be really pleased because you consolidated yourself nicely in that top 5. I think you're 19 points clear of 6th place at the moment.
No way, really? Oh, that's so good. I think I'm 3rd yet. I think I got in front of Spro. I don't know how to say it. Yeah, no, that feels great because I'm really bad at Imola. I'm really bad at Imola, so I kind of needed this because I don't rely on many points next week.
Well, I mean, you certainly picked up a whole handful of points. Should we talk about the sprint, though? Because in recent weeks, that's probably been your kryptonite, to be honest, struggling to make it through the field cleanly. You did that very nicely, and probably from your perspective, it wasn't for most of the group, but it was a pretty boring sprint race once you got up into P3.
It was just one of those fun races where everyone to the left and to the right of you just kind of messes someone else up and you just kind of fly through. I love those sprint races, but yeah, a few times I've been the one that's kind of been caught. Yeah, I mean, Oh, I just got jump scared. Me and Dirk had a moment. That was fun fighting. We got in front of him, but then I think him and Dale like caused something after it, and then they were shouting in the group chat. It was kind of funny. Yeah, no, it worked well for me, and I'm just surprised. I'm happy to be here.
It's always good to see you on the podium, of course. And once again, a very happy person to be on the podium. And why shouldn't you be? You're on the podium, right? P2, you had a fantastic race. Obviously, I was talking to Dale about your undercut strategy. It just didn't seem to work in the long run. Your tires just maybe losing a little bit too much traction. And he actually spoke about that curve through turns 5 and 6 and 7, where you kind of, apparently, if you get too late on the brakes, if you kind of try and keep your confidence from earlier laps, you can actually see yourself losing a lot of time and see yourself losing the rear end of the car.
Yeah, good point. But the undercut, I forgot I'd done the undercut. It felt like the right thing at that time, because I was faster than Dale at that point in the race. I was like, right, I'll just get in quickly. But yeah, no, that corner coming into the long DRS straight, he just had an extra strat there. I think he could just push the limits a little bit more than what I was willing to do, and that's why he won it. Like, that's how he got away, and he deserves it, because I wasn't willing to do it. So I was a bit caught up in the whole time penalties and not really knowing exactly where the sort of fine line is.
Yeah, playing it safe, but P2 to P2 still a fantastic result for yourself. You ended up going neutral with where you started. I think that's something to really consider as well. And overall, it's been a fantastic race from your end. Is there anything else you kind of want to talk about?
No, just loved it. I cannot wait. The moment I started this season, I said to myself, I want to get into the chat, obviously. I want to get into the playoffs, because I was on the commentary team for the last playoffs. Loved it, watching it. Was so much fun. And I was like, do you know what? No, I want to be a part of that next season. And do you know what? Here we are, 19 points. If anyone can mess this up, I can. So I can't get too happy yet. So, like, we'll just wait and see.
Well, you've done brilliantly this week. A nice, fine return to form puts you in very good stead for the final round in Imola. So thank you very much for talking to us. Pleasure as always. Yeah, we'll see how you get on next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well done, guys.
Yep, good luck.
Thank you. We've spoken to first, we've spoken to second.
Yes.
Now I think we should bring in Dark Viper, who maybe a bit of an underrated performance. Could get driver of the day. We'll talk about that quickly.
To be honest, I don't think he was spoken enough.
Well, we're going to have a nice little conversation with him now.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Dark Viper GT, hello. Returning after a week out, missing Singapore, but you certainly didn't lose your form. Another win, this time in the sprint race, and a very, very controlled drive to third in the feature race. You must be very pleased with that.
I am quite happy, but I feel like I definitely messed up, like especially in quali. Like that damaged my race so much. Like when I was trying to chase them down, I was matching their lap times, but because I lost so much time in traffic and then getting myself for 5 seconds, I was just never going to catch them. But the sprint was like great, amazing start. I gained 5 places by turn 1.
Yeah, and you had a really nice battle with Adam Sanson as well for the lead. That lasted a few laps, and to be fair, he stuck like glue to your gearbox for the majority of it once you got past him. Were you ever worried at any point that he was going to get back through, or were you confident you were going to hold on to it?
Lap 10-11, I made a few mistakes going through that really awful chicane, and he was like 2 tenths back each time. I was like really worried, but he never went for it. I think he was waiting for DRS, and then my final lap, I put like a big enough gap between us, because it's really hard to overtake even with DRS, so you kind of learn the gaps quite easily.
And I think we need to have a little word about the playoffs as well. You've only taken part in 3 rounds this season, but you're only 5 points behind 5th place Stewarts. Now, I know you're a reserve, and it's not confirmed if you'll be in next week. Are you going to plan on trying to be here? Because you could get yourself in those playoffs.
I'm going to do my best to be here, you know. Punju's already said he's going to be out next week, so there's a free seat. Hopefully we make it. Imola's not my strongest track, but I feel like 5 points isn't like too huge to overturn.
Jamie?
Oh, I agree. I think Imola has this weird diversity about it. I don't know if you'd agree with it. I mean, overall, I guess you kind of spoke blankly about your confidence going into it. I mean, are you kind of concerned about how you may do at Imola, or is there like overall kind of, you could probably do well, or?
I mean, I like to think I can do well, and it's just about practice really, because track limits is huge there. So if I put in like a good few laps, if you get comfortable with the track limits, that's everything there. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And how was the race for you, though? Because for a lot of it in the feature race, you were kind of in no man's land.
I was like, my chat were engineering me. I was arguing back and forth with them on whether or not like the undercut was like the way or not, and so they kind of helped me through. It was really stressful at the start because I went for softs, you know, to try like get through the pack quicker, and I was getting caught up in a bunch of like silly little fights that we didn't need, and I was stressed because obviously I've only been here a few rounds. And I really want to try and make playoffs. I feel like that could be quite funny.
I mean, you've definitely got the pace to do it, and it would be a fun story to see you get in there after only competing in half the season. But $1,000,000 question, you said about the qualifying was what let you down. Do you think you could have won the race if you started further up, maybe P3, P4?
I think we would have had a much better chance. Like, I was matching pace. Dale had that slight edge on me, like 1 or 2 tenths each lap, I think. But with DRS and just like if I was able to pressure him a bit, we never know.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us. Pleasure as always. We hope to see you next week and make you a charge for those playoff spots. But congratulations on your podium and sprint race win this week. And yeah, best of luck for the rest of the season and in the future seasons as well.
Thank you, guys. I was happy to be here.
Happy to have you all the time. Well, I think that pretty much rounds everything up. It's been a... I know I said this last week about Singapore. It could go down as race of the season. I think this could potentially challenge it.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm weirdly not surprised. At the same time, Singapore is a fantastic circuit. The one thing I was kind of worried about is, like I mentioned before, the one thing that kind of ruins Miami is the chicane, right? Going through the elevation turns like 14 to like 16. But the chicane kind of worked. It caused a lot of moments that were almost sour, like that sour face, that like where you can like clench your face a little bit. It kind of felt as if things were going to happen, but everything kind of ended okay through there. There was obviously little moments where people got squeezed or it was slight contact, but it was actually okay. And obviously the moments where they were probably using the straight for the DRS and then all the technicalities through the first and second sector actually made quite a really entertaining race. And it meant, you know, because it's a spec series with Formula 2, all the, you know, the downforce is quite similar. The way the chassis has been constructed, the main, you know, structure of the car, all same monocoque structure, all the same downforce in terms of how it's been made. It's fantastic on how close it can be when you have the spec series like Formula 2 racing there.
And just to round us off, driver of the day, who do you want to put in the hat?
Oof.
I'd really like to give it to Dark Viper, to be honest. I think brilliant performance in the sprint, very solid in the feature race as well. Anyone else you want to throw in there?
I think he's been the most balanced. He like you mentioned, got a win in the sprint race, had a fantastic battle with Adam Sanderson, showed incredible cleanliness throughout the entirety of both sessions. In one-shot quali, he set down a fantastic position. He was able to have good battles as well and still be able to manage a P3. I think, realistically, I agree with you with pretty much everything.
I'd also give a shout out to G-Watts as well. Been so
Yes,
good in the last
true.
3 races. China picked up a 3rd place in the feature race, 4th place in Singapore, 4th place here again, in really good form, making that late charge for the playoffs. Currently in there by 5 points. We'll have to wait and see what happens next week in Imola, where we will see for the final time on F1 23 the F2 drivers going at it, hammer and tong, battling for those remaining playoff spots. F1 Alex, we should say this is confirmed, I believe, in the playoffs, or it pretty much confirmed. The gap's 35 points. F1 Alex will be in the playoffs for the 2nd season running. Yeah, that's pretty much everything to add. Anything else you want to say to us, Jake?
No, it's just been a fun experience. Obviously, the last time I did commentary this season, I believe, was Brazil, all the way back in round 1. So it was nice to be back. It's been a little bit, but you know, it's no complaining on my end. It's always nice to commentate for Creator Series, and I'm glad I'm back. But no.
Thank you, everybody. Then we are going to head off soon because we want to let you all watch the F1 sprint that's going to be going on in 20 minutes or so.
There you go.
Ooh, any predictions? Any predictions? You cut out of mine. I didn't quite hear what
Any
you said.
predictions? Oh no, there you go. Any prediction? What for real life Formula 1 sprint? Ooh. Well, I think Max is going to win. That's quite a prediction. Shocking.
He's not, that Red Bull is not the quickest car, and I'm going to say this now.
No,
McLaren is
you
the
know,
quickest
I
car.
don't disagree. No, I don't disagree. Red Bull, in terms of like pace for a driver, it isn't the quickest car. It isn't. But it's Max.
Yes.
He's on a different level of pace. He makes that Red Bull the quickest car. With the help of Adrian Newey's aerodynamic genius and also the engineering from the mechanics and from the engineers, they have been able to make a car that is dominant and suits the racing style of Max, which is why it's been so dominant. But moving away from that, well, you know what? Maybe I'm a little biased because I'm Australian.
Oh, where this is going.
And maybe he got P4, but Danny Rick for a podium, it's gonna happen.
I think Oscar Piastri, I think he's going to be looking dangerous.
True. No, Oscar Piastri, realistically, using that McLaren, like you mentioned, it most likely is the most competitive car on the grid, and who wouldn't love a Piastri podium? Me, especially, as an Australian. It's you just kind of have to. It's the rules of being Australian, but no. It would be cool to see that.
Yeah, we've got qualifying later as well. I'd love to see Lando Norris pick up a win, so everybody stops calling him Lando No Wins because he deserves it very much. But we'll be back. Well, we won't be back, but the Creator Series will return at 6 o'clock once the sprint has gone down, and it will be the penultimate round of the F1 season. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for the rating as well and all of the follows. Make sure you get involved in all the social media platforms. And yeah, we will see you next week for F2, but in a couple of hours' time, we'll be back with F1. So for myself and Jamie, is goodbye.
Cheers.